Chronicle of a Death Foretold by Gabriel García Márquez is a novella, published in 1981. It was originally written in Spanish and later translated into English. It is set on the Caribbean coastal town of Colombia during the 1950s. The novel is a hybrid of genres: magical realism, allegorical fiction, psychological detective, crime novel, investigative journalist account, postmodern novel. It is from the first-person perspective of an unnamed narrator, possibly the author, who investigates the past through under the guise of journalism. The characters reveal their stories in the third-person perspective by the narrator. The narrator, a journalist perhaps, had returned to town to investigate Santiago's murder after 27 years. Don't forget to subscribe. Chronicle of a Death Foretold is based on a real murder that happened in Colombia on January 22, 1951. Two brothers from the Chica family killed a man named Cayetano Gentil Chimento because he had slept with their sister, Margarita Chica Salas, before her marriage. Her husband, Miguel Reyes Palencia, returned her when he found out she wasn't a virgin, and her brothers took revenge on the man they thought was responsible. Marquez used that true story as the basis for Chronicle of a Death Foretold, but it's not a straightforward retelling. He added fictional elements and focused more on why the murder happened and why no one in the town stopped it, even though they knew it was coming. There's a lot of symbolic meaning, too. Santiago is portrayed like a Christ figure. He has a wound on his hand that's like a stigmata, he wears white linen clothes like a sacrificial lamb, and he's killed in front of a crowd, pinned against a wooden door like a public crucifixion. After the book came out, journalists visited the town where the real murder happened and tried to track down the real people behind the characters. The novel begins on the morning of his death. Santiago Nassar wakes up early, around 5:30 a.m., to see the bishop's boat arrive. People don't agree on what the weather was like, but everyone remembers that Santiago was in a good mood. He puts on the same white clothes he wore to a wedding the night before of Angela Vicario and Bayardo San Romanan. Santiago heads to his mother's house to get an aspirin. Santiago is a young man of 21 years, slim and pale, with curly hair and intense eyes. He's an only child. His mother had a strong intuition, which Santiago inherited, and his dad taught him how to handle weapons and animals, and how to be brave but cautious. After his father died, Santiago quit school to run the family ranch. In the kitchen that morning, Victoria Guzman cuts up rabbits for lunch. Her daughter, Divina Flor, gives Santiago coffee with a bit of liquor, as she does every Monday. Santiago flirts with her, grabs her arm and makes a suggestive comment: "The time has come for you to be tamed." This upsets both women, especially Victoria, who had been taken advantage of by Santiago's father when she was younger. Both Victoria and Divina have heard the rumor that Santiago might be killed, but they aren't sure whether to believe it. When Santiago leaves the house, he uses the front door, and at that moment, the bishop's boat stops making noise, and roosters begin to crow. Unbeknownst to him, someone has slipped a note under the door warning him that people are waiting to kill him, but no one finds the note until much later. Meanwhile, the Vicario twins, Pedro and Pablo, are waiting for Santiago at the milk shop, dressed in their wedding suits and hiding knives in newspaper. They plan to kill him to defend their sister Angela's honor. Angela had accused Santiago of dishonoring her. People gather to greet the bishop, bringing gifts, but the bishop never even steps off the boat. He just makes the sign of the cross from the deck and sails away. Santiago's friend Margot invites him for breakfast. She finds him attractive and feels jealous of his fiancée, Flora Miguel. Santiago agrees to come but says he'll first go home to change. At this point, lots of people in town have heard about the murder plot. Some think Santiago has already been warned and is safe, while others are unsure. Margot hears that Angela Vicario, the bride from the night before, was sent back to her family because her husband discovered she wasn't a virgin. Nobody knows yet what Santiago has to do with it. Margot tells her mother, who rushes to warn Santiago's mother, but just as she's leaving, someone shouts that it's too late. "Don't bother yourself, Luisa Santiago. They've already killed him." Bayardo San Roman, 30 years old, comes to town looking for a wife. He's rich, good-looking, and charming, but some people think he's weird, even devil-like, while others say he's a kind man. As soon as he sees Angela Vicario, he decides she's the one he wants to marry. Angela is the youngest of a family of scant resources. Angela doesn't really want to marry him, but her mother won't listen. They have a 4-month-long engagement. When Bayardo asks Angela about her dream house, she points to a beautiful hilltop home owned by an old man named Shows. The man refuses to sell it, but Bayardo offers so much money that he eventually gives in. So Angela gets her dream house. No one suspects Angela isn't a virgin. She grew up under strict rules, and under the rigor of a mother of iron. She wasn't allowed to go out alone with Bayardo, even after they got engaged. The one time her blind father came with them to see the house, something may or may not have happened, but afterward Angela asks her friends about how to fake virginity on the wedding night. They tell her to fake blood on the bedsheet if she needs to. Bayardo plans a huge, expensive wedding for the whole town. He even expands the Vicario house to hold all the gifts and guests. Santiago Nassar attends the wedding and parties with everyone else including the narrator, but nothing suspicious happens, though everyone is so drunk, their memories are unreliable. After the wedding, Bayardo brings Angela to the dream house, but soon after, he returns her, disheveled and half-dressed, to her parents' home. He says thank you to her mom and leaves. Angela's mother, Pura, is horrified and beats her daughter. When the Vicario brothers come home at 3 a.m. and see what's happened, they demand to know who took her virginity. Angela instantly names Santiago Nassar. Afterwards, the judge exonerates the twins from the murder charges because their actions were legitimate defense of honor and the twins had surrendered at the church a few minutes after the crime. At least 22 people were aware of the murder plot. The twins later tell the narrator they first looked for Santiago at Maria Alejandrina Cervantes' place where they'd been partying, but when they couldn't find him, so they waited for him near his house. At the milk shop. After Angela told them it was Santiago, they picked out the best knives from their pigsty, wrapped them up, and had them sharpened at the meat market. The butcher, Faustino Santos, is suspicious that they seem too drunk to know what they're doing, so he tells a nearby police officer. Meanwhile, the twins drink more liquor at the milk shop and openly tell Clotilde Armenta, the shop owner, that they plan to kill Santiago. She tells her husband, but he brushes it off. The police officer tells Colonel Aponte, who assumes it's just drunk talk. Still, he goes to the milk shop, takes the knives, and tells the twins to go home. They do, but only to get new knives, which they also get sharpened. They're serious, even though some still think they're bluffing. Pedro is more hesitant, but Pablo insists they have to go through with it. Pablo's fiancée, Prudencia Coates, later says she wouldn't have married him if he hadn't defended his sister's honor. Back at the milk shop, Clotilde gives the twins more rum, hoping to get them too drunk to act. Meanwhile, Santiago is out with his friends serenading houses, unaware of the danger. They're all tired from the wedding and head off for breakfast. Santiago says he'll rest a bit before the bishop arrives. Clotilde tries to alert the priest, Father Carmen Amador, but with the excitement over the bishop's visit, he forgets and walks right past the killers without realizing what's about to happen. The narrator's sister, a nun, informs that they've killed Santiago Nassar. The killing of Santiago Nassar was brutal. His body was left out in the open in his house because the town didn't have a freezer big enough to keep it. In the heat, it started to rot quickly. The mayor insisted that Father Amador perform an autopsy, even though the priest wasn't a fully trained doctor. With just a few knives and some household tools, the priest examined Santiago's body and found it had been stabbed with 7 deadly wounds. It was in such bad shape that they had to bury it right away. The awful smell from the body was everywhere, it haunted the whole town. Even people who weren't near the body, like the narrator and Maria Alejandrina Cervantes, could still smell it. The Vicario twins couldn't sleep in jail because of the stench. They were scared that Santiago's family or the Arab community would take revenge. But the Arabs, including Santiago's mother, didn't want revenge as they were just heartbroken. Pura Vicario, the twins' mother, took her family and moved away, afraid someone might still come after them. Later, Pablo Vicario married his girlfriend and lived near his mom, but his brother Pedro went off to join the military and disappeared for good. Oddly enough, many people thought the person who suffered the most was Bayardo San Roman, Angela Vicario's husband, because he lost everything. After returning Angela, he went back to the house he bought for her and drank non-stop until it nearly killed him. He became like a ghost of himself. Bayardo was hostile and unresponsive to the narrator's questioning. The narrator once visited Bayardo's old house and found a suitcase full of Angela's things, including tools she could have used to pretend she was a virgin. But Angela said she never used them because she wanted to be honest with Bayardo. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was all something dirty that shouldn't be done to anybody. She survives by doing embroidery and refused to identify the person with whom she was intimate before her marriage. Years later, Bayardo came back. Angela had spent 17 years writing him weekly love letters, but he never replied. But when he showed up at her door, he didn't say much. Just, well, here I am. He was carrying a suitcase of around 2,000 of her letters, still unopened. After Santiago was killed, the town couldn't stop talking about it. But at the time, most people didn't think they should interfere as it was seen as a matter of honor. She told him the dream meant good health, but it was actually a bad omen. 12 days after the murder, an investigator came to town. The narrator later read the investigator's notes, which were scribbled in the margins of the case file. The investigator was puzzled. There was no proof that Santiago had taken Angela's virginity, even though she insisted he had. She never said how or where it happened. The narrator believes Santiago died without understanding why. Santiago and his friend Cristo Bedoya were walking through town when people began staring at them. A man named Yumel tried to warn Santiago by calling Cristo aside, but by the time Cristo ran to find him, it was too late. He even took a gun from Santiago's house to protect him, but it wasn't loaded. Meanwhile, Santiago had gone to see his fiancée, Flora Miguel. She had heard about the murder plot and was angry. She thought Santiago would be forced to marry Angela to restore her honor. When Santiago arrived, she gave him back all his love letters and told him she hoped they did kill him. Her father, Nahir, finally told Santiago that he was in danger. He started walking home. People saw him and shouted at him to run. He reached his house, but his mom had just locked the front door. Someone had told her he was already inside. The Vicario twins caught him outside and stabbed him. Even after his guts spilled out, Santiago managed to walk around the house and enter through the back door before collapsing in the kitchen. Let's thematically analyze Marquez's Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Men and women are treated very differently in society. Men are given freedom, they can do what they want, and even violence like murder is tolerated if it fits the role of a man defending honor. Meanwhile, women are heavily controlled. They're expected to be pure, obedient, and silent, and their worth is tied to how well they follow those rules. Women are often treated more like possessions than people. For example, Divina Flor's mother doesn't try to protect her daughter from Santiago's advances, likely because she herself had been forced into a sexual relationship with Santiago's father. This shows how normalized male dominance and female submission are in this society. Even Santiago casually says that Divina needs to be tamed like she's an animal. Angela Vicario's life is restricted by her family. Her mother never lets her leave the house alone, and when Angela is returned by her husband for not being a virgin, the family's reputation is seen as ruined. The only way to restore their honor is through violence, specifically, by killing the man Angela names as her first lover, Santiago Nassar. Marquez criticizes the culture that allows this kind of violence. The townspeople's confused and often contradictory memories show how absurd the whole situation is. It's almost darkly humorous how many people knew Santiago was going to die but didn't do anything. That confusion becomes a form of satire, revealing how ridiculous and tragic these social norms are. What makes everything worse is that Angela later admits Santiago probably wasn't even the one who took her virginity. Yet she names him anyway, knowing what might happen. Whether she acts out of fear, spite, or desperation isn't clear, but it leads to an innocent man's death. Everyone in the town seems to accept that this is how things work. If a woman loses her virginity before marriage, a man has to die to make it right. This tells us how toxic and harmful the culture of honor and machismo really is. The whole story is soaked in machismo, this toxic idea that a man's pride, power, and control, especially over women, define his worth. Men in the novel visit brothels and brag about their conquests. Women, on the other hand, are judged only on their sexual purity. When Bayardo returns Angela because she's not a virgin, he's acting on this idea that a woman's value is in her purity. And when her brothers kill Santiago, they're performing the ultimate macho act, restoring their sister's value by taking a life. The idea of fate is everywhere in this book, as even the title suggests that Santiago's death was foretold. From the very first sentence, we know he's going to die. On the day they were going to kill him, Santiago Nassar got up at 5:30 in the morning to wait for the boat the bishop was coming on. The murderers, the Vicario twins, tell pretty much everyone that they're going to kill him, so it's not a surprise. But even more than that, the story makes it feel like Santiago was doomed no matter what. Sure, the twins made a choice, and a lot of people around them also made choices, like not warning Santiago or not taking the threat seriously. Some didn't believe the twins would go through with it, and others, like Victoria Guzman, Santiago's cook, and her daughter, Divina Flor, just didn't want to get involved. These choices make the murder seem preventable, and yet, no one stops it. At the same time, the narrator keeps finding strange coincidences that all line up just right to lead to Santiago's death. a warning note that Santiago doesn't see, the front door being locked by Placido Lanuro, people missing him by minutes, and so on. It's like the universe was working against him. Even the killers seem like they're hoping someone will stop them. And then there's the big question that why did Angela Vicario name Santiago at all, when it seems like he wasn't even guilty? The book throws around words like destiny and fate a lot, making it seem like no matter what anyone did, Santiago was meant to die. The narrator fills the story with signs and omens, but they only make sense after the fact. The structure of the book, by telling us the ending right away, also makes it feel like the outcome was never in doubt. So in the end, the book keeps us wondering, was it fate, or was it everyone's choices that killed Santiago? The main thing happening in Chronicle of a Death Foretold is the murder of Santiago Nassar. But there's also another story going on at the same time, the narrator trying to figure out exactly how and why it happened. Years after the murder, he starts asking people what they remember and tries to piece it all together, like a journalist or a documentary filmmaker. The story is built from tons of interviews with people who were there. But everyone remembers the events a little differently. Some details don't match up at all. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing and conflicting pieces. The narrator doesn't try to hide these contradictions. Instead, he shows all the different versions of the story. This highlights how unreliable memory can be, especially when time has passed and alcohol was involved. The novella shows us that memory is messy, and the truth can be hard to find. Sometimes it even feels like real life is stranger than fiction. The narrator and even other characters start to notice that the whole story feels too full of weird coincidences, almost like something out of a badly written novel. And yet, it's based on a true event, even though the book itself is fiction. Let's look at the important symbolism of Marquez's Chronicle of a Death Foretold. On the day Santiago is killed, the bishop comes to town, but he doesn't even stop. He just waves from his boat and keeps going. He doesn't talk to anyone or bless the town in person. It feels symbolic, like God or morality itself is ignoring the town. The bishop acts like he's too good for them, but isn't that exactly when the church is supposed to step in, to guide people who are lost or sinful? The townspeople still show up to see him, pretending to care about religion, but they don't actually follow its teachings. It's a bit hypocritical. They seem to care more about appearances than real values. So, while the town is pretending to be religious, everyone ignores the warning signs of the murder that's about to happen. It's like both the bishop and the townspeople are turning a blind eye, one out of pride, the other out of denial or indifference. At the start of the novella, there's a quote from Portuguese playwright Gil Vicente, "The pursuit of love is like falconry." That might seem random, but it actually ties into Santiago's story. He's a falconer, and falconry is all about sending a bird to catch another bird. There's something brutal and random about it. You release the falcon, and it grabs whatever prey it finds. That's kind of what happens to Santiago. Angela Vicario randomly says his name, and just like that, he becomes the target. It doesn't even matter if he's guilty or not, he's picked, and that's the end of it. Just like the prey caught by a falcon, his death feels cruel, arbitrary, and unstoppable. It adds another layer to the book's theme that fate can be as irrational and ruthless as nature itself. Hope you like and subscribe.